Thank you. I know folks have worked very hard to try and actually converse and work these things through, and it's much better. It doesn't take away from the fact that it's a horrible drought, a horrible situation. So figuring out what to do is the challenge. I'm trying to figure out what the most useful thing for us to do right now would be. I found this actually quite helpful, believe it or not. What? Oh, Tim? Oh, yeah, I didn't bring the your card's over there. Tim, last word. You'll just wrap it all up for us? No, it's fine.
Tim OLaughlin, representing the San Joaquin Tributaries Authority. I have a question for staff, and maybe they could answer it. So on the chart that was put up on the screen, it said San Joaquin River Basin curtailment this Friday. Do we know, is that the San Joaquin River Basin from Vernalis all the way to Friant? And what's the geographic boundary of it? And also, is there a start date? Is it 1906 or 1908? What's the game plan?
Yeah, staff has done the analysis for the individual tributaries, the Stanislaus, Merced, and Tuolumne, and right now they're combining data for the basin as a whole to give us a common date at a common location. I believe it's Mossdale Bridge.
So, but will that include if it's Mossdale Bridge, so then you're going to curtail people on the main stem of the San Joaquin River on Friday too?
It's common curtailment.
Can you say that again? I actually couldn't
So
hear
it's
that.
basically, it would be a watershed-based curtailment like all of our others have been this year.
Yeah,
So-
well, okay. Well, so it's just going to be the Stanislaus, the Tuolumne, and the Merced.
No, we've run all the data for the individual, those
I
individual
just need to know,
tributaries.
is it
Plus, we're
all
running
three of
right
them?
now the data for the major, for like the combined whole watershed picture. So
So is the curtailment going to include the main stem San Joaquin?
at this time.
Perfect. That's all I need to know. Thanks. Appreciate that. I just have two real quick points. I'm struck by the irony of this. And actually, Terry Earlywine teed this up earlier, and it came in the letter that you received last year, which started these discussions going forward, which was the exporters say 35% of their water is being mysteriously disappearing in the system. We think it's in the Delta, but we need to find out where it's occurring. And you got that letter, and then you folks started your process to go forward and collect additional information, do what you do. So I find it strange that we're in this process now, and the first curtailment that's going to be issued is on the San Joaquin River above Vernalis. And I'm wondering why that is, because there's no way that anyone on the main stem of the San Joaquin River or on the three tribs could ever take stored water from the projects. So I'm sitting here, and here's my question to you folks, because you're the policy people, and when you do policy, in my mind, you have a goal in effect. Or what's the goal? So I've been asking your staff and people, what is the goal? And I hear it's to protect senior rights. Well, that's really not the goal. The goal is to protect stored water being released by the projects into the Delta. So you can back more water up into Shasta and Orville and the American River. I have no problem with that. Totally down with that. So why is a curtailment being issued on the San Joaquin? Because we don't take their stored water, and we can't possibly take their stored water. And so it's kind of ironic to us that this is occurring in the fashion that it's going to occur. The other thing that's ironic is, to me, is there's this discussion, and I applaud Ms. Spalletta on moving forward or trying to get some reduction in Delta water use. My clients have already been reduced somewhere between 40 and 90%. So if the goal is that we've taken these reductions and you get a hall pass on curtailment and enforcement, then why are we issuing curtailment notices at all on the San Joaquin River or the trips? We've already reduced. We took those voluntary measures already in February and March. So how are you going to do that? And one of the oxymoronic things.
What do you mean by that?
Well, all the districts voluntarily reduced their water supply to their growers and have pushed water up into storage and are taking conservation measures And therefore, so why is that any
But
different?
that's of stored water.
But it doesn't matter. If they're taking, I mean, think about it this way. If the statement is, here's the funny thing about this. If the goal is that, based on the curtailment, that we were going to protect stored water in the Delta, and people in the Delta aren't taking water without right, just because you reduce it 25% and they're taking 75% without right, doesn't make it right. So my question to you and your staff is, who are you what is the goal here? Because in her, Kathy's presentation, it was ironic. I mean, there's no water in the San Joaquin River system. There's nothing. And like she said, you go out and do these inspections and it's dry. Like we said last year and we said this year again, people upstream of our reservoirs, we're not concerned about them diverting. There's no water to divert. So what are you, I'm asking you, what are you trying to accomplish here? I mean, I have no problem, because I've been fighting this battle for 25 years. I have no problem teeing up legal issues that need to be resolved in the Delta. Okay? I'm fully supportive of that. There's some major, like, is stored water released to meet Delta outflow protected? I don't know. I've never seen a 1707 on it. I've never seen a state board order on it. If that water goes into the X2 zone and is abandoned, is it subject to appropriation? I mean, there's great questions to ask, okay? But if you go about it with a curtailment, here's my fear. My fear is we're going to be in a legal procedural morass, which has nothing to do with the substantive issues. Because it's all going to go to whether you have a notice, whether you have an order, whether you've taken a final action, whether it's administrative action. Can we seek a stay? Can you seek can we have a TRO? Are you going to say we have to exhaust our administrative remedies and come back here and file motions for reconsideration? I mean, we're going to be playing that dance, and especially if your staff rolls this out in a sequential order where we're going to have curtailments for, I don't know, are you going to go all pre-14 rights all the way back to like 1850, or are you just going to go like 1906?
Staff is still doing that math for me.
Okay. So, but let's say you do half of them now and half of them later. So now we're going to be staggering these people through these processes with various complaints. Then you're going to do riparians. Now you're going to do the Sacramento. Now, my clients have claims that they have pre-14 rights that are superior to pre-14 rights in the Delta. And you're going to, so I get the issue in the legal issues involved, but the process by which you're trying to, and I keep telling your staff this, the process by which you're trying to get to the point to put the legal issues in play isn't going to get you there.
And what's your suggestion?
My suggestion is that if you truly feel that you want to do, get to these legal issues, and I've told your water master this, and I've told your staff this, you issue CDOs and ACLs on specific properties or interests in which you think parties are taking water without right. It's pretty simple. Because the broad brush isn't going to get you there. And it's not going to give you the fact patterns, and it's not going to give you the issues that you want.
But that just seems to be one aspect of it. So if we were to focus on, I guess you're talking about the Delta diverters that may or may not have a right, but the issues are broader than that. And
Are
just
they?
well, and okay, so when you say protecting, that we're protecting, staff is wanting to protect senior water right holders.
Okay.
So the Delta diverters are also in the San Joaquin watershed.
Yes, they are.
And so one would think that in anticipation of a claim that they would have is, what about folks upstream, such as your folks?
And if Mr. Herrick sitting right behind me, if Mr. Herrick ever has a claim that we are improperly diverting his water downstream, bring it on.
Well,
But that's not what's happened here. The claim that was made by the projects that their stored water was being illegally diverted. It wasn't that the upstream, Mr. Herrick didn't make a claim last year that we were improperly taking his water upstream. That claim wasn't made. And if he wanted to make that claim, I think that'd be a fine claim to bring to the state board or to a court, and we can go through that. But that's not what this curtailment's about. The curtailment is to push more water into the Delta okay, so that the Delta people can get their water needs met and therefore back off taking water that's being released by the projects. That's what's happening, okay? And it's under the guise that they have senior rights. Now, Mr. Herrick and I have had numerous long discussions about who has what senior rights in the Delta. But like even your staff admits, when the forms came in, people in the Delta claimed pre-14 and riparian rights. Your water master sent them a letter and said, which one is it? Your staff analysis treats everybody like a riparian. Well, we already know under the Phelps case that everybody isn't a riparian. So that's the issue. And if you go this route, the problem's going to be you're going to get stuck in this legal mumbo-jumbo world, and you're not going to get to the substantive issues. And the curtailment isn't going to give you additional water in the Delta, if that's what you're hoping for. I don't know if you're hoping for additional water in the Delta or if you're hoping to cut off or reduce the amount of loss to the exporters. I don't know which one it is. I go back and forth every other day about which one it is.
Guessing game.
It isn't? So is it to protect stored water?
It's to implement the system.
Yeah, you know, we look at,
You're fair to point out, I mean, this is helpful to point out what we need to think.
in terms of outcome, but, you know, there is a ministerial function that, you know, we have to confront when the demand outstrips the supply. So there's a ministerial function that we're trying to, you know, in good faith implement.
Well, now see
This
that's and I take you at your word, and I take you at your word, and I agree entirely with what you say, and I understand that regulators want to regulate, and I understand this desire. Well, no, because here's the problem. We presented to you last year on the San Joaquin River. We had all the major water right holders, and we had the South Delta signed up, and we said, you do not curtail us. You don't need to curtail us. You didn't curtail us. You had no complaints. You had no allegement of water right infringements. You had nothing on the San Joaquin. That's some BS little things down on the main stem of on the Friant, but those were like 3 complaints. So we operate because, see, actually, I disagree with you. The water right system is a self-effectuating system. And if you have a water right, you and your neighbors get together and figure out how that water is going to move through the stream, how it's going to operate, who's going to divert, and when. So in this, that's the basis. You don't see curtailment notices because you don't need them. So, and if you try to do it in the San Joaquin River system, which is this big, then you're just going to run into all these little nuances and problems. So my statement is, don't issue it. And if you think somebody's illegally diverting water, issue a CDO and an ACL. And you'll be in a much better position.
Clearly,
If
many
I may,
different views.
this is the sort of thing that we need to discuss more than, you know, no offense, but, you know, that at 7 o'clock at night at the last minute.
No, agreed.
This is very important. And I'm not trying to isolate my clients so everybody else is fine, but Tim has brought up the crux to the issue. Curtailments on the Tuolumne and the Merced and the Stanislaus in a year when there's zero water, really. That's not protecting South Delta. The intent of this program is to protect exported stored water. Now, we could find ways to tee that up, or you could go after somebody, but that's who's being protected. It's the stored water for future use, whether that's fish or X2 or exports. That's the intent of this process. Now, I don't know if that's what you think, or I don't know if that's what staff thinks to themselves, but there's no senior right holder that's going, whew, you curtailed everybody from Mossdale up. And besides, it can't be Mossdale. It has to be Vernalis. Mossdale's in the tidal zone. But this is the issue. And it all boils back down to the poor South Delta, which is, should they be diverting water when somebody's releasing stored water to meet obligations? Well, we think the answer is clear, but everybody else apparently doesn't. So if you want to tee that up, let's figure it out. But you're embarking upon a curtailment of, I don't know how many, hundreds or thousands of diverters for no benefit when there's no complaint. Now, I would say if somebody's complaining that the Delta is these illegal diverters, it's odd that they don't bring a complaint for that. They just write a letter that says, I think they're evil, and then the
But
board
see, now you're making a
and then the
caricature
board
of it.
repeats that for
There-
2 years. But be
Right.
that as it may,
Look, I see what you're saying, and you're right, this isn't the best time to have the conversation. What we've been struggling to do is figure out how to tee that conversation up, because what happens is a caricature of people caricaturing other people's legitimate interests. So we have two sets of problems, and they are real problems. One is the unsettled legal decisions. Some think they're settled, some think they aren't, the whole set of those. And then there's this issue of the data and the information we have, some of which we don't have because people haven't given it to us, and some of which they have now given to us. And so there's a whole passel of things that people are doing a Rashomon on, and we have to figure out what to do about it.
no, but we are not having workshops or hearings to find that.
Right, and what we need is help in teeing up those issues, which is what I was trying to get at before, versus a restatement of people's positions and what somebody else's intent is and why they're bad, which I know is a human thing to do. I just don't find it that useful.
How would you suggest we tee it up on stored water?
Well, we've been asking for a couple years if you as board or staff will give us your factual determination of how water works in the Delta, and tell us why you think the law that we've quoted to you is wrong. Then we could have a workshop and see where somebody's making something up or not, or if it's clear, or if it's not resolved, or if there's issues, or there's conflicting law. And then from that, we could figure out what to do. And I've suggested before, and you guys will never agree to it, not because of you, but because of the Attorney General's office and your own counsel, you'll never agree to, here's the set of facts and the law, and let's get a declaratory relief action quickly. Now, I don't know why that can never happen, but that's an easy way to do it, especially if we've all sat down and said, okay, that we do agree on that. This one, everybody says each other is wrong, and this one's maybe. Boom. I mean, that's the easiest and cleanest way. So that's your discussion, no offense, with the AG's office, who won't listen to you, and your own staff, who will listen to you. So there are ways to do it. There may be other ways too, but those are the issues.
So
And
I have a question for you. Let's just assume that we have that answer on stored water, and that there's a determination that there's a certain amount of stored water that the Delta diverters are picking up. Wouldn't it matter to you at that point about a curtailment process on the San Joaquin and on the Sacramento? You're at the bottom of the system.
Well, stored water is released into the Delta, but the issue is whether there's natural flow absent the stored water for people to divert, whether there are regulatory and statutory obligations on people who are releasing water into the Delta, and whether there are regulations that are ordering people to maintain conditions for those diverters in the Delta. So it's a bigger group of things, and of course, however it all pans out,
Right.
then
But
someday a potential curtailment might be important, but it's not now. Anyway, I didn't mean to delay things, but
No,
this is the heart of the matter, right? Because the exporters don't want Tuolumne River water. Well, I said that wrong. But thank you for your time.
that was interesting, yeah, definitely. Other questions, thoughts?
Well, the three takeaway messages I got were, according to Mr. Herrick, no one listens to us, not the AG, not anyone else. According to Mr. Nomalini, staff tells us what to do. And according to, I forget who the third person was, we're actually doing better than is perceived.
Right. What to think about, trying to figure out.
I would like to better understand. It's interesting because I can go back and forth on this issue. And there are so many different, yeah, there are so many different aspects of it. I do think that, as you said, that the goal is to implement the water rights system. And one of the things that I am concerned about, all you have to do is pick up a newspaper and see that there are people that think that our water rights system doesn't work, and maybe we ought to scrap it and try something else. So we've got to collectively figure out a way. Personally, I think that it can work, but there are these ongoing issues that haven't been resolved over a period of decades. So we need to get to the bottom of it and demonstrate that the water rights system does work. Because for those of you that are looking at strictly a legal analysis, you should also be looking at, the court of public opinion and what could occur if we don't do our jobs. So I'd like to, maybe after staff gets some time to sort through the hydrology, how things are going forward from, sort of the perspective of the math, have a better understanding of if this happens, then what are the options? If we take this action, what are the various options? Not just our options, but for those that would be filing suit or issuing some sort of counter complaint. What are the different options as far as how things could play out?
Now, one thing I find challenging is the notion that some people hold that we really can't do anything. And the practical impact of doing what some suggest is that if we did it legally the way they said we should do it, we could never get anything done in a drought. Just not possible, because we'd be in court forever. So it does appeal to me to tee up the issues, and I know that Mr. George and the team have been working through it, but I would like to see sooner than later that short list of issues. We won't resolve all 20 of them or 100 of them that are out there. I'd like to see what are the 3 to 5 greatest hits that would make progress in this arena, and then where would we make the most progress in implementing the system, because just stasis and throwing up our hands is not an option. And I know, again, that there are ways that we can and that we plan to, but I would like to see that strategic package for moving forward that we've talked about for a long time, even if it's just in the next couple of days, few days. And I would like a clearer sense of the timing on things, so I know which things we need to decide, what we have to decide before Friday somehow, and what we have to do in the next few weeks, so that we make the time to be able to, I'm looking at you, but the team, because some of the issues we're discussing today, I know this is eerily familiar and people have brought it up, are the same issues we talked about last year. And this year is not last year. This year is worse than last year. And just not acting is not good, but I want to make sure that what we do is strategic and thoughtful, but has forward motion. Would you like the last word?
Thank you, Chair Marcus and Board. I need to make a correction to a comment I made, and I would like to hope you, as suggestions, you consider what the gentleman said, that we have a forum of experts. We need more growers to show up. They say no one listens to them, so they don't come to these meetings. But
we've had a lot at other meetings, I'll tell you.
That's good.
Honestly, this was a quiet meeting compared to our last meeting.
Yeah, it's a lot of info. The correction is that I'm a good news choir singer, and but the truth is we do have a dying redwood tree that's almost 70 years old. We do have we're paid by ton. We have less tonnage, so I'm told we need to irrigate more. When I went to a San Joaquin County Board meeting a year ago, a lady reported that 11 wells have gone dry. My father said we can't put the well go any deeper. And in our house, we have cloudy water, and it was clear 3 years ago. So we're going to have to pay $4,000 for a soft water system. We are feeling the result, and any talk of diversion is ridiculous. We don't, what are they talking about diverting from to semi-arid? And the vocabulary, we haven't heard the word aquifer. I heard riparian. We only have a well. We don't have a canal. And when people say, oh, storage, I know that's the Farm Bureau, but for me, I have to say, and some others, who's controlling the spigots? I mean, I'd like to know more about the aquifer system that we're relied on. And that was 100 years ago, it was 3 feet with watermelon. Now it's 50 feet, and it's because it goes to Oakland from the Pardee Reservoir. So people have been borrowing our water since Pardee, 1906, and later San Francisco had an earthquake. I mean, playing with water is pretty serious.
That's complicated.
So thank you for your time in doing that, and I hope we can consider more press release in good faith and more forums like this and workshop where people, because there's a lot of vocabulary. I said, what does curtailment mean? That says that's your water rights.
Surface water, right?
Oh, well, we have
Not groundwater.
Oh,
Yeah,
see, I didn't
surface
even know
water.
that. And then we heard some other things. Substitute water. What do you mean substitute water? We don't want more cloudy water. Anyway, thanks a lot for letting me correct my earlier comment.
Thanks for spending the day with us. So, we'll be talking a lot in the next few days, but can we, I really want I feel remiss in not having that schedule laid out. Questions teed up and figuring out the All right, with that, more to think about than to resolve in this meeting, but this actually was very helpful to me, so thank you for the time that you've all spent. I'm sorry it's so late. Maybe an unsatisfactory conclusion because we haven't wrapped anything up, but it's been helpful, so thank you. That I will adjourn.